I remember working on a proposal to bring the latest version of 2K to Game Boy Advance, I think it was. And then news broke that Electronic Arts, with all this pressure from every company around them, locked in the NFL as an exclusive license. It was like a nuclear bomb going off in the game industry. I knew things were bad because our call that we're supposed to have got canceled immediately. It was weeks until we heard from them again. All these people who assumed they'd be able to renew their license with the NFL had to drop everything they were doing. You had development houses cancel their games, and some places go out of business. Overnight, Madden reclaimed the throne without having to lift a finger on the development side.
EA's exclusive partnership with the league meant no other game could use NFL player names, team names, or logos. There couldn't be another video game about the NFL. With the stroke of a pen, Electronic Arts had vanquished Madden's competition. Now, Madden faced a different kind of challenge.
Now, like the biggest threat to Madden is Madden itself. How do you develop a game that every year can improve upon the last year?
As technology has advanced, the video game industry as a whole has pursued greater and greater realism, and Madden has consistently set the standard.
The suspension of disbelief gets that much better every year, and they've really created this amazing system. When you see a player in the game, you recognize that player. They have their face down to the sweat, down to the helmet, the scrapes on the helmet, the mouthpieces, even down to the shoelaces. It's something that feels like you're watching a real game of football.
The result has been a video game that keeps fans coming back every year for its annual release.
They've sold at least over 125 million copies of the game since '89. And to put that in perspective, I think that's over probably $4.5 billion of sales. That makes the franchise probably equal to, if not more than, the value of Lucasfilm and Star Wars.
And some of the game's biggest fans are NFL players themselves.
Oh yeah, I'm all over that, baby.
Madden is a staple in player lounges and hotel rooms.
That good old new Madden. I heard they had San Antonio out there going.
Oh man, they got me giving you water when you're tired, everything. Man. It was perfect.
Though players do have one consistent complaint: their own ratings.
I've only had one player in the history of Madden not complain. That was Emmitt Smith years ago when he played for the Dallas Cowboys, and he was in the locker room, in the Cowboy locker room, and some guys were playing. He was watching them play, and someone was him, and he was watching it. He said, holy moly, I'm doing stuff in the video game that I've never done in a game. But he's the only guy that ever said, I'm too good in the game.
The core thing that stretches through all of this with players is that they all want to be better. It's just that simple.
The guy responsible for player ratings for most of the last decade was Donnie Moore.
Yeah, I'm probably better known as the rating czar for Madden, and that is on my business card.
He has since stepped back from that role, but for years, as rating czar,
this is it. This is where the magic happens.
His cubicle was stacked with books and magazines,
lots of scouting information,
enormous 3-ring binders
pages. It's
filled with heavily highlighted, double-sided printouts.
Basically comments that we kind of turn into numbers.
Though research tools have evolved over the last decade, the objective has remained constant.
There was great pride and great responsibility with trying to portray everything as authentically and accurately as possible. If you go back to look at the early Maddens, there's 5, 8, 10 ratings. Then we expanded that to about 20, 25, and now we're pushing 70, 75, 80 ratings that make up a player.
Even individual team playbooks get translated from the field to the game. Anthony White has worked on them for over a decade.
We pay attention to such minute details as what hash mark will they run this play from, what defensive coverage are they running this play for, how are they blocking this particular blitz scheme when they're running this play.
He watches hundreds of hours of game film. And to make sure Madden stays true to what's happening in the NFL, EA also brings in analysts and coaches
Did you pull the guards in?
Yeah, we would pull the guard. We wanted,
as well as players, like Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, who joined John Madden and the game's producers at EA's office in Florida to review the game when he was on the cover.
For the most part, we run out of eyes.
They spend hours discussing everything from new game features to offensive formations.
In their eye, the fullback's not always...
Right, he's not always there.
Yeah,
okay.
He can be.
You know, that should always be an option, too, that your fullback can motion either way.
These meetings have been a staple of John's relationship with EA through the years.
We'll take a look at that. That's pretty easy for us to fix.
I watch and make sure that anything that happens in the NFL, that we get into the Madden game.
John, he was always fantastic about spotting these high-level trends and almost enforcing to us, like, hey, you guys got to have that in the game. That's like a new thing in football this year, and if they're playing my game, that we need to have it.
Even as he's gotten older, John continues to regularly host the game's developers at his studio in California.
Welcome. I just want you to know that I appreciate the work, the time, the effort, the knowledge, the passion, and everything that you put in to the Madden video game.
It's a chance to review the state of Madden's game while watching a full slate of NFL games.
And I think that one of the things that we're always trying to do is make the game look like it does here on TV. So we got this setup here and 9 monitors. So thank you very much, and let's watch football.
And sometimes, like during one of their meetings in Week 1 of 2009,
Horton in the gun.
the NFL itself plays out like a moment from Madden.
Batted up. Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline! Wow! Touchdown! Denver! Unbelievable! Right place, right time.
For Madden's developers who were at the meeting that day, the replay of Brandon Stokely's touchdown revealed something striking.
Time was running out, but it wasn't like 0-0-0 on the clock.
11 seconds left.
So what Stokely did is he runs parallel to the end zone. He's not doing it to like taunt. He's actually doing it strategically.
He's burning time off the clock by not going into the end zone until he absolutely has to.
And for us, we were all in the room, and that's something that a Madden video game player is very well aware of. Like that's how you play the game. It's like, oh, I'm not going to leave him any time on the clock. I'm going to be, a jerk, and I'm going to run parallel to the goal line for as long as I can, and then I'll go in the end zone. It was like a surreal moment to see Brandon Stokely had to have gotten that piece of strategy from video game playing, and to be there with John the moment it's happening. It's almost like a full circle, like, oh my God, the video game is now influencing how the actual players are playing on the field.
We have these young players in the NFL who grew up playing Madden. They learned about football through Madden as much as they learned by playing it.
And you look at it today, that's a really remarkable and fast transformation.
For Trip Hawkins, this development is part of a fundamental cultural change from when he first set out to make the game.
When I started making video games, they were a shameful occupation and a shameful hobby. They've become mainstream. And people like John Madden were very instrumental in enabling video games to become a central part of modern culture.
I have a 10-year-old son who is learning about football through Madden. I think kids growing up today, John Madden is somehow football, and there's just no separating them.
You can tell how people know you by what they call you. And there are people who do call me Coach, and then people call me Madden. Just, hey, Madden! It's a video game guy. I'll see you over at my house, we'll play Madden. And then they see me and they say, hey, there's Madden. Hey, Madden!
John was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006.
And I said, they can't take this away, can they? I mean, they can't say we're kidding. We want it back. I said, no, we can't take it away.
Not as a broadcaster, not as a contributor. He was inducted as a coach.
He is kind of every man's coach.
I'm a coach, and that's what I am, and everything goes around that.
I think if history looks back 100 years from now at the evolution of football, I think many people will confuse John Madden as the inventor of the sport.
I did say to him once, I said, do you realize that you are immortal? And he said, what do you mean? In another 100 years, the Madden game will still go on. Hence, John Madden is an immortal. John loves that. He like when I told him, he's gone,
Stay tuned for a preview of the next 30 for 30 podcast. This is Jody Avirgan. Thank you to the team that put together this podcast episode. You know, each season we want to find talented and original storytellers with the right skills to build a team that can complement each other's talents. With ZipRecruiter, the process of finding great talent is smart and streamlined. When you post your job on ZipRecruiter, their technology proactively finds the most qualified candidates for your job and notifies them to apply. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And right now, 30 for 30 podcast listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/30. That's ZipRecruiter.com/30. Coming up on the next episode.
As long as I remember, I always dreamed about flying.
He had built his whole life on making that jump, and he all of a sudden felt like he couldn't do it.
The fatality rate was 50% of the people who were trying it had died.
Like they say, every time when you fail, it makes you stronger. I don't know. I never failed.
If you have a failure of the pressure suit and you are exposed to that altitude, blood boils and you die within a few seconds.
I promised my mother that I'm coming back because I'm surrounded by the best scientists on this planet, and I'm not going to let my mother down because of you guys make a mistake.
Thanks for listening to 30 for 30 podcasts. My name is Jody Avirgan. ESPN Films senior producer Aaron Leiden is our series editor. This episode was created in partnership with NFL Films. This story was produced by Dave Newpower with production support from Emma Jacobs and 30 for 30's own Andrew Mambo. It was narrated by Will Wheaton. The coordinating producer for this episode was Ken Rogers. Brandon Murphy was the project manager, and 30 for 30's Taylor Barfield was production assistant. The executive producers for this episode were Ross Kedover and Pat Kelleher. Mixing for this episode by Mike Kennedy. The 30 for 30 podcast team also includes Kate McAuliffe, Vin DeAnton, Ryan Nantel, and producers Keith Romer and Julia Lowry Henderson. Connor Schell and Libby Geist are executive producers for ESPN Films. Adam Newhouse is director of development. The ESPN Films team includes Deirdre Fenton, Jenna Anthony, Catherine Sankey, Jennifer Thorpe, Alex Bowen, Paul Williard, and Colin Fleming. The ESPN audio team includes Trog Keller, Tom Ricks, Megan Judge, Pete Giannassini, and Ryan Granner. Special thanks to Moya Dacey, Sean Grady, and the whole Electronic Arts team. Thanks to ESPN's Ryan Hurley, Ray Dinahan, RJ Santillo, Rodney Belizaire, Tony Chow, and Kate LaRue. Louise Argianis and Jennifer Thorpe did archival research. Roger Jackson provided fact-checking. Our theme music was composed by Rishikesh Hirway of Song Exploder. We're posting lots of extras on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. What is your favorite version of Madden? Let us know. And you can sign up for the newsletter through our website, 30for30podcast.com. Be sure to subscribe to 30 for 30 Podcasts in the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week with more 30 for 30.